wonder whether
Hello,
that
everybody. Hello. Oh no, he's talking already. What do you want?
Can we not? Can we like mute him?
Okay, that's cool. I can.
Oh my
actually...
god, I'm legit super.
So Neil's camera is acting a little funny, and nobody knows where Dunce is. So let's all, if you haven't messaged out or said anything nice towards Dunce, do so over either on Discord or on Twitter, and say, "Sup, buddy? How you doing?
You
Hope
smell
you're okay.
nice, Dunce.
You smell nice." He was in an area that got hit by that nasty Hurricane Florence that came through the U.S. because he's down in the Carolinas. I'm not sure which one, but I know he was down there. So yeah, say something nice to Dunce while we all hope that everything's cool with him. All right, but enough of Dunce. Let's talk about everybody else, like Neil. Okay, not Neil. We're done with Neil.
My camera's actually. I think this is you, Scott.
No,
I mean that is the singular explanation.
no, because
I see it too, Neil.
yeah.
There's some guys out front pumping my drain right now.
Well,
Oh.
that's
Call
usually
in.
something you do out back.
Get him
You
on the
need
camera,
a couple
dude.
minutes? Like, do you need a private moment to finish off real quick, or?
And I refuse to believe that my fiber optic runs through the drains. So I don't know why it's like this.
I mean,
So
your connection's
therefore-
gone down the drain, so.
Therefore, it's Scott.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
have
fixing
fiber
the
optic speeds there, buddy.
Yeah, I do.
You said 28 down.
Yeah,
What's that
I'm not-
fiber speeds?
I'm
man?
not wired.
Dude.
Like
20,
I'm wirelessly connecting to a
28
router.
down is
Oh.
very low. But
Yeah, I
even
mean,
then, like
you say that, but like
But like what?
this is the UK. We've got like hundreds of years of infrastructure to dig through.
oh my god, you're like not a person. You're like a frozen boy.
Fuck
Oh no,
this.
creepy face frozen. Oh, let's see how many faces we can get him frozen. Oh, that's super creepy. All right.
Oh my god, I am actually. Oh, that was a good face.
It's gonna be great. All right, let's fuck Comcast. So last session again, you guys had defeated the big beastie. You had the conversations 2 sessions ago. Defeated the big beastie.
I defeated Big Beastie.
I don't remember any of this.
It was a
Sorry.
concerted effort to.
That's because you were passed out, being bled on.
No,
by
I
that.
just don't think it happened.
It was a concerted effort between all of you to beat the big beastie that Rick released. So just remember, don't piss off Bran because there's more where that came from. Maybe.
Scott.
Yes, Neil.
Concerted effort, not consorted.
You know, you are actually correct. I did mispronounce that one, as opposed to pasta. I did mispronounce that one.
No, it's creepy pasta. I don't know how you don't know what a creepy pasta is.
He's like pasta or something. I don't know. He said something weird, but whatever. It doesn't matter. He's British.
Pasta.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So
That's not how you say it.
no, it's
That's
not.
how the Italians say it.
But
Italians are wrong about how they say their own fucking words.
I've been to New York a lot. That's not how they say it.
They aren't real Italians, man.
Wow. Now
Whoa, okay.
before we get banned for your racial stuff over here or your national stuff, whatever. So you guys have defeated the big beastie together as a concerted effort. And then you had the conversation with General McDouchebag, who more or less was like, "Hey, help me kill all the other races, starting with the Scoia'tael." And you guys are like,
Who
"This
is-
sounds awful. Let's help you." Wink. Traveled away from there, went towards a nearby city, and within that city, you were able to find out some details about where some Scoia'tael are nearby. Also spoke to a mage that happens to exist in that city, and got a couple other bits of detail. And then made your way up into the north along the river, traveling the river, where you more or less got ambushed by the Scoia'tael. No actual combat happened that was very, very close to it. One of the Scoia'tael actually ended up shooting an arrow into another one's leg, a bolt, my apologies, into another one's leg to make sure that, things didn't progress any further than they had already done so at that point, because, there were some issues involved. And now you guys had literally just gotten to the camp. There's way too many of them in a cave, way too small to house this many. I described it as being about 24 in a place that would comfortably sit like 6, 7, or 8 different dwarves. So it was very much packed together.
Well, they're small, so they can do that a lot easier, right?
Wow. very packed.
We're starting
together.
already, aren't we?
But your guesses were it was going to be about 3 dozen worth of the actual Scoia'tael about. It's just a matter of how many were actually in the spot that you guys were in at the moment. So you had just walked in, been led to the back of the camp. Did everybody see the campaign notes, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah, y'all like the notes I wrote for you.
This is the only campaign where the DM is my bitch so much that he writes my notes for me.
No, I did it for the viewers, and actually, I don't think I made a trigger for it, so I'll actually do that sometime during the session. I'll make a thing so you guys can just have the notes loaded up. But I'm sorry, Neil.
Find it in the Discord at Bloodletting Spoilers.
Everybody, I would like you to do me a favor. If you're feeling like spending some daddies today, trump cards or what are they called? Fumbles. Please just throw a little note in there. This is for Neil. Okay? You say this is for Neil. This is for Naggy bitch or whatever you want to call it. This is for him. Okay? Sorry, Tal. I like Tal, but all right. So you guys have just walked into.
I like Tal, but not you.
You guys had just walked into the place, and you were just being introduced. So as he had just walked up, he was literally introducing himself to you as we ended last session. And as he walks up to you, he extends a hand to shake. It's actually specifically to shake Bastion's and what's his name? Leonard's. So he reached out to take their hands. And he says, Zoral Dastana.
Oh, that's his name. I was like, oh shit, I don't speak dwarf. Leonard. Just shake his hand.
Okay. So you shake his hand, and he looks to the other two, and says, which is the mage?
The one in the robes.
He nods and says, "The three of you may have a seat." And he looks to the person that led you in here, and says, "Take the other one to the cell."
Right. Yeah, that's a good thing. Let's treat racial prejudice with more racial prejudice. Lead the way.
So you get led off to the cell, so you don't have to see you glitching about for this conversation, and what happens is you're actually led out of this cave, and out of the cave entirely, and rounds the cave's the little mountainside where the cave entrance is, around one of the sides of it, up a bit of a steep climb into an area where you can actually see there's a few more buildings that are over there as well. So these few buildings are very, very small, lean-to kind of structures, very thrown together very haphazardly. You can see they're not very strong. Clearly, these dwarves are not the best at design of buildings and whatnot. There's no architects amongst them, but probably barely even like woodcutters amongst them, because things are done very rough. But they're thrown together. It's keeping the rain out for the most part. But in the center of these buildings is actually a little like stockade, like a little wooden-made prison that's in there, and it's actually fairly well bound together by ropes that are there. There's nobody else in it, but you are led over to this little stockade area and put inside of it, and if they latch it shut and they put jam something through it to hold it in place. Again, it's not like there's a locksmith that carries some awesome latch here. It's literally just like for you to get out of this, you would have to just like knock the lupin eye free, which would take a little bit of effort. But there's also a dwarven guard immediately standing right there, looking her up and down. You can see it's a female dwarven guard that's standing there. She has in her hand pike, you can imagine, because there's bars, so it's easy to get to you, but she also has a mallet tied to the other side. The weapons are all, again, well enough crafted weapons, certainly for a group of people that are very, very much displaced, having no real home, having no real place for trading, so on and so forth. So anyways, back into the cave itself.
Did they disarm me?
They actually would, yeah. So it's one of those things where, as you were heading out of the cave, my apologies, they would take your what do you have with you? Your spear, your crossbow and bolts, and I think you have a dagger on you as well.
I don't think he has a spear.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it was just replaced at the end of last session.
I got, let's see, Reaver spear and my Redanian crossbow.
Awesome. So you give all those things over, and you can actually see where they're held. It's literally like, so like I said, there's a couple of the lean-tos that are in this area. Over against one of the lean-tos, like a small table that's like built either into it or is also kind of leaning against it itself, and they just throw the things on it. So they're probably about 30 feet or so from where you are. But obviously outside of the cell that you're locked in. The cell itself looks like you're sitting in here very comfortably. It looks like if there were 4 people, because you can't stand to your full height inside of it. If there were 4 people in here, kind of like sat down with their legs kind of pulled in, you probably could sit there relatively comfortably. The issue is, as you're being let into the cell itself, part of your shirt actually gets snagged on the wood that makes the thing up. So as you're going into it, the dwarf that's leading you in, she hasn't really said anything or been mean to you until this point. But as you're going and you realize that your shirt snags, you're like, oh shit, and you like look back and you see your shirt snagged, and you try to go like pull it free. She thinks you're being resistant to get into the cell, so she actually hits you in the back of the head with the wooden thing and shoves you through, completely ripping open your shirt.
I mean, he's not wearing a shirt.
Your pants then, completely ripping open your pants. So
he's not wearing pants. He's wearing a kilt.
He was wearing a kilt. It's now actually completely torn open. So your right thigh is entirely exposed. Your butt cheek, as you like move around or walk around, would be completely exposed.
You're naked.
So
wow.
And
so who do we thank for that one, Daelric?
Someone who's not very funny. And so they
Of course, it's Josh.
they latch the thing shut. They latch the thing shut, and whereas before she wasn't very menacing, the fact that because you were going along with it, the fact that you had done this small amount of resistance, or at least perceived resistance, she's actually now standing there with her arms crossed, like watching over you, like, oh, you're going to be a bit of a problem, huh? Gripping the spear fairly tightly. When others walk by, like 2 or 3 children like walk by, she actually says to them, in Dwarven, but you've heard enough words in the other languages to be able to understand kind of what she's saying. She tells them, like, keep back, danger. All right, let's go to you. Oh, don't worry, your +4 charisma or whatever you think it might be is gonna have disadvantage because you're fumble. You're welcome. So you're trying to talk to that dwarf. All right.
No, he's got a sexy leg out, so he's got a +4 charisma. It's a bonus.
So making your way down, going back down into I always say making your way. So down into the cave. And this is that small, you kind of had to force your way into that back area that was carved to allow you guys to pass into it. You're sitting in there with the leader amongst the dwarves, Scoia'tael. So Scoia'tael is, he gestures for you 3 to take a seat. And I imagine you all do so. And he sits as well across from you. Inside the room that is not very large, you're closer together than what would be comfortable if it wasn't for the fact that you had to be close together. So it's like the situation itself makes it so it isn't comfortable. If you were like out in the open or at like a table, this would be too close. At the very mouth of the doorway to the rest of the cave, there is actually another dwarf standing back there. They have an actual shield out and on their arm and an axe in their hands, and they seem to be prepared. Their axe is like an axe on one side and like a pick on the other. And then also standing in the room is another dwarf, but it's a very young one. It's a young male dwarf. Maybe, you guys don't really know their ages very well, but if you had to guess in like human terms, this is probably like a 7 or 8 year old. But in dwarven terms, who knows how old this thing is. So he takes a seat as well across. The young one stands behind him, and he says, "I have been given word that you would be coming this way, but I was also given word that you could be a danger to my people." And he will like open hand gesture towards the back of Bastion's hand, and says, "I need to know whether if we can use our mouths, or if I need to remove that hand."
We will be civil, don't worry. Bastion might be a silly man, but he's not stupid.
I imagine Bastion was actually turned around at this point, not really paying attention, looking into the cave mouth, seeing if there's any of that dwarven badonkadonk that he might be able to,
He wants some of that boom.
Yeah. So, or there's some of that boom. So he's like looking back, and he like looks back like, huh? And he's like, so you say we'll be civil? And he's like, then explain to me why it is that you seek me out, and why it is I'm told that you are hunting me. And I do not mean seeking. I do mean hunting.
I take it you're intimately familiar with the witch hunters at this point.
He will actually look back over his shoulder towards the young dwarven boy that's standing there, and when he does so, he probably gives him a look. Back of his head's turned to you. The boy actually looks up and off to the side, and you can see like where a scar is, where there's a deep gash into the side of the boy's neck and throat, and then looks back towards you and says, "Intimately."
Yes, I've been on the wrong side of their blades as well for a long time now. They finally caught up to me, put me in chains so I couldn't do anything, and then forced me to make a devil's bargain or basically die there. Naturally, I don't feel like sticking to that bargain very much.
It seems strange that they would even consider a bargain with one like yourself.
Their ends justify the means, I guess. They gave us vague promises of not being pursued afterwards. Vague promises that are worth shit.
He looks to Leonard, the one that seems intelligent amongst the Witchers.
Oh, thanks.
Bit keen, and says, "A Witcher's life is certainly long enough to enjoy not being hunted for the rest of his days, and you do not seem to be particularly old yourself."
Yeah, you could see how the offer would be tempting to me. I give him a smile.
Then, what is your plan? Why are you here?
We have to be here because in order to break the magic that binds a witch's contract, we have to actually start the contract before we can start to break it.
I do not understand witchcraft, and the words you say seem to make no sense, but that seems to be the way. Very well, you're here to start hunting me, so instead you cannot. So, what do we do from here? And he as he says that, you can hear like the shift of metal behind you, as the other dwarf is kind of like, squaring off a bit.
Well, the magic is a little fickle, and I think it might be best for us to have some kind of a backup plan if this contract ends up not being broken. Essentially, I think it would be best to keep you in on the loop of what we were hired to do in the first place.
Very well. Inform me of what you're willing to part ways with, and I will listen in. At this point in time, you guys actually hear like a shuffle going throughout the room behind you. You can actually hear like footsteps approaching the small area. Because again, there's like a hustle and bustle out there. It's a lot of people in a small area. It's a cave, so it echoes a bit. Yeah, despite the bodies and whatnot, that would kind of break that up. So it just sounds loud. But despite that, you can actually feel the sound almost slightly deafened as you hear somebody else, once again, you can hear the creaking of leather and the clinking of metal as someone else like approaches that cave mouth behind you. And the reason why the sound seems to deafen is because they almost seem to stand in the way of the hole, almost like blocking it off to the area behind it. Do either of you turn your heads back to look at the mouth as you feel this like presence approaching and hear this person approaching, or do you just ignore it and continue looking forward? at
I
this
guess
man.
I guess I'd take a glance at least.
A sideways glance. Okay. So, because your character's very perceptive, so I imagine you can do so without being too obvious about it either. 1 second, sir. Where are there? You are. So, anyways, when you look in that direction, what you end up seeing is a rather a tall and broad figure that's standing there. Once again, wearing very heavy metals. Wearing very heavy armor on them. A bit of fur attached to parts of their armor as well. It's not a quick enough glance to really get all the details about them, but a quick glance at the face shows you that part of their face is actually horribly scarred, similar to how yours is as well. Part of the face is actually horribly scarred, and you're pretty sure it's a female that you see before you. She says nothing. She does nothing other than lean like arms over the little hole in the door, the little hole that you guys use to come to this part of the cave, leaning on it and just watching in and listening. Again, says nothing, doesn't partake in the conversation.
She's not dwarf-sized, is
No,
what you're saying.
She is. She's definitely a woman, a human woman, and not
Okay.
a small one.
Okay. Where were we?
So, you had just said, I'll fill you in on the
yeah.
details.
And he wanted to hear it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, essentially the contract stated a few parts. The main ones being, 1, we're supposed to report back with any information we get on this camp, along with any other camps that you may have. Information relating to how the witch hunters can find it and essentially destroy it. 2, if there is a final battle, we are supposed to join forces with the witch hunters. And by final battle, I mean if there is a big decisive war, a fight that would decide the fates of either side, we're supposed to side with the witch hunters. Now, a witcher's contract is hard to break, but terms are easy to skirt around. So I think it might be worth looking at wording and making a plan involving that. And I've been thinking about this a bit on our travels. Essentially, we don't want to have that big decisive battle. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
That's not something that we want. That's not something you want. That's something they want. So I think it would be best if we tried to avoid that as much as possible. But the main key thing here is that we're supposed to report back with everything we know. Simple enough. Just don't tell us anything. You get what I'm saying here?
I do.
Awesome. And then a third part. I actually have something, and I don't know what it does, but I think it might be useful. Would you like it?
He thinks for a couple moments. He actually will turn to the boy at his side and nod. The boy looks questioningly back. You can even see where his head's turned away from you. He's giving a stern look. And the boy, without saying anything, walks around where you guys are sitting very close together. Makes his way past the armored dwarf and then the woman that's standing large behind them, and goes into the rest of the cave. Then it takes a few moments, and they turn. He looks you square on after he watches the boy leave and says, "Very well."
Do I have my items with me, or do they
Of course,
take?
yeah. Nope, they didn't take anything from any of you. Only Tal.
Okay, so I'll open up my bag and I will place the egg on the table that we got from the source on the mountain.
Okay. So you take this large egg and you place it on the table, and he's like, "I do not know what this is."
On a
think
mountain, we encountered a source. It was infusing basilisk eggs with snake blood. I have the book on his rituals. He was trying to create an army of sorts.
So you think this is a new creature, a new monster, but has not hatched yet, so will likely be less dangerous when it's born?
As much fun as speculation is, I think that's something we can't help you with. if you don't want them to know. We can tell you everything we know, but any speculations and thoughts you may have, you're gonna need to not voice them to us.
Have you shown this to Malvoon?
No, it did not come up in the conversation.
And this is meant to be a peace offering.
Liability, yeah, a little bit.
I am in a precarious position. Your story, it makes sense why you are taking the path that you are, and why you are choosing survival, but not survival by betrayal, at least not to my people. Seems as though either direction you choose is going to be a betrayal of sorts, to lead to a survival of sorts, but it seems like at least you are claiming to be making the decision that would better benefit myself and my people.
Well, I personally can relate to your cause a lot more than the cause that has been hunting me and trying to kill me for years.
Except
I
my
give him my
people
heart of
aren't.
darkness puppy eyes.
This is my people aren't hunting you, and so it makes sense why one would take to the side of those that would seek to end your life. But either way, I understand this precarious position, and that you seem to be positioning yourself in a way to benefit myself and my people. And now you must try to win my favor, to gain my trust despite this situation, without seeming as though you're gaining my trust because you're actually pushing forward with your task. That's a difficult feat to say the least. And your choice in doing this, your method, is to give me a token of good faith that happens to be a beast that nobody knows what it is or what it can do, and when it is born, could potentially wreak havoc amongst my camp or deliver us a boon that would defend us in the future. Once again, we walk a fine line. How do you survive? Who do you betray? And what is this that sits before us? A bane to my people or a boon? Do you see the position that you have put me in?
Absolutely. I think
I give like Leonard a stare, like, why did you do that?
in addition to this, we have been forthcoming with information regarding the contract. And I think at this point it would be best if we left you to your own worries and try to break the contract before we try to help you again.
You mean you intend to find your ways to skirt out of it? What method do you intend to do to use this? You had mentioned there's very specific wording, and you're trying to find a loophole?
That's partially what this was. But in addition to that, we actually do have a mage that Melvoon that thinks he might be able to break the contract.
He looks down at the egg at that last thing that you said, and then he seems to be regarding it differently. And he looks up at you and he says, "This being a danger to myself and my people, that was intentional." And it's like, it kind of like clicks for him before. Like before he thought that this was like you still walking that middle of the road. And then he realizes this is you intentionally giving him something dangerous. Like that was actually not accidental, not like, oh, this is a token of good faith. That was actually no, I'm actually doing this to fulfill the contract and to put you in danger. But by the way, wink, now you know what it is so you can be prepared for it. Like that actually clicks for him for the first time. He's older, he's not stupid, but he didn't quite follow that because he doesn't understand beasts and whatnot the way that a witcher would, of course. He just lives on the land. And so like when that actually kind of clicks for him, he actually, you can see his I mean, he's a dwarf. He has very hard features whatsoever. And when I say his tone softens some, you can actually see almost like a slight sparkle appears in his eye. When you can actually see that he seems to be giving in a little bit to your persuasion here. But do me a favor. Because of that, roll me your actual persuasion check. And because you have your party aiding you, Bastion with his dumb smile and Rick with his occasional chime-ins and whatnot, and the fact that, Heart of Darkness, you can roll it for me with advantage, but hold. Who's rolling it?
I have a +3.
Believe I shall be the one. No.
You have a +3.
Yes, from prison.
What about Bastion with a +5?
Bastion's actually not really said much.
God damn it. All right. Yeah, you go ahead then. Go ahead, Rick.
should
dead
just
inside.
we should have Neil playing Bastion right now.
Wait, can we boost that even higher if we mention we'll leave Bastion with him?
No.
Damn.
So what do you need me to roll? Just a flat charisma roll, or like persuasion, or?
Persuasion, I think.
It's a persuasion with advantage, sir.
Oof.
Okay. Are you happy with that? You get your big old bucket of Witcher sense.
I mean, it might
Use
be
the
good to
Witcher
spend
sense.
Yeah, I think we're gonna spend a Witcher sense on it.
Okay.
That's better, at least.
Okay, so all this kind of plays out and whatever, and so you apply this persuasion. But when you apply the persuasion, do you say anything? I actually did this a little backwards. Sorry about that. Do you say anything in particular as you're finishing us off? You'd use your puppy dog eyes, anything? Do you chime in anything last second, Rick?
Not to mention that I am not entirely bound by the same terms that he is, or at least not in the same way. I have much less qualms about directly going against him. I would be.
I have something to chime in with when.
I would perhaps be able to start slipping you some information as I start deciphering the book about this egg, in order to further twist the odds in your favor, of course.
Go ahead, sir.
This may be a basilisk egg. If it is, I wonder if a group of strong warriors like yourselves could find a use of taming the small creature in some sense. And that's it.
Yep. So he listens to you guys, and he's kind of like weighing his options. You know, he's kind of being a dwarf. They're longer lived. They spend a few extra moments calculating before they speak back sometimes, and so he's really mulling it over for a little while, and he says, "You need not leave yet. This camp is not large. There's not anything hidden here, and certainly if they came searching this area, they would eventually find it. We're also able to move quickly if we need to. So I have nothing to hide from you. You are welcome to move about the camp, and you're welcome to do so freely. I do not mind this while I contemplate the situation and come to a conclusion. In the meanwhile, you have a friend of yours. He's currently locked up. I did this because I have to show my people that we have a strong way of handling the humans. And it was known, by way that the message was delivered and whispers being spread, that the group of you arriving could mean doom or aid. So I had to act accordingly. I'm willing to set him free. I'm willing to allow him to travel amongst you if you'd like, but I need to keep somebody locked up as collateral. I must appear this way for my people. You understand?
I think I know just the guy. He would love to stay here. Yeah.
Bastion is like looking about, like curious, like, oh, who's like, this could be Brand? Like, oh, Leonard, that's really nice of you.
Yeah, Bastion. Yeah. It's actually, I thought you would want to, take a little break.
Yeah, get to know the locals a little.
And I imagine with a quick persuasion check, Bastion's like, oh yeah, I'd be able to.
There's a female guard, Bastion.
Yeah, exactly.
She's still in the doorway.
No, well, there's the one in the doorway, but there's also the one that's up by the cell up above. So, you guys are able to quickly convince Bastion to be the one to switch places. He looks past the three of you at the woman that's in the doorway, not the dwarven guard, but the human one.
Yeah.
And gives her a nod and looks to you and says, I will have you led to your friend, and you can decide which amongst the four of you will stay in chains between now and when it is that you finally leave or we come to a conclusion.
Lead the way.
You guys, get up, and again, it's not like it's very tall in here or anything like that, and you make your way through. And now when you're turning and you're regarding this this female that you see, could the both of you roll me perception checks, por favor? Por favor! Too much.
Perception.
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 Boom.
Oh,
Nice.
Messy dropping it. So as I described beforehand, as you're like looking at this woman and you're following out and kind of getting more of a view as you see her in sunlight, one of the things that you're going to see is, like I said, part of her face is seriously fucked up looking. Her ear, around her cheek, over an eye, which doesn't even look like it fully works, is almost milky white, over in the neck in that region. But that whole part of her face that you see that's messed up, as opposed to all the burns and whatnot that you see on Leonard, this actually seems as though it's frostburnt. Both of you guys being all too familiar with it, growing up in the wilds and seeing the harsh nature of what frostburn could do to somebody, you actually see that it is frostburnt, really bad in the area, and even some of the hair over there has been turned white because even though hair still grows, the pigment has been completely removed from that part of the head. Looking at this very meaty woman as she walks out, having the skins and whatnot, one of the things that Bran is also able to catch glimpse, the eye that still functions, the one that that isn't the milky white, is actually a darker yellow. It's actually like a deep dark yellow and has a bit of a slit to it. Eyes that you're all too familiar with from the companions that you're traveling with at the moment. Going over to you, Leonard, with your natty 20, looking her over, you not only see the features that I just described to Bran, but you actually also see a very telling chain that hangs around her neck, one that looks all too familiar to you. Not the same exact kind that you have hanging around your neck. Actually, it's a thicker chain, a heavier chain, though you cannot see the medallion. You're pretty sure that this chain is the kind that's typically used by those of the bear school. She's walking out there, and she's adorned, like I said, in very heavy armors. She has the heavy furs all over her. She walks with a little bit of a limp, but very assured step. Every step has a weight to it, has calculation. It'd be very difficult to knock this woman over if you were to try, even Bastion. She says nothing as she walks out with you guys into the open sunlight. Finally, when you do come out of the cave entirely and take a few steps away from it, she turns back towards the you, and she's sizing you up, glancing you over. She sees Bastion. She sees your face, Leonard, and her eyes actually linger on the side of your face for a few extra moments. Sees the medallions hanging from your neck, and then looks over towards Bran and looks him down and then back up again. When she looks at Bran, she actually has a little bit of a softer expression on her face looking at him. Roll me an insight check, the two of you.
The puppy eyes.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Oh shit.
we're doing this again.
I did say insight, though.
Fuck, sorry.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah, that's
22.
That's
Is it
different.
22
Fuck.
okay?
Yeah, I get you in.
You burned a 20 on investigation.
I know.
Sorry, sir.
It's-
So,
it's- I just woke up.
Anyways, you can actually tell. So you're actually kind of taken aback by this large woman and the way she's like looking you down and like sizing all of you up and everything. The fact that she looks like she is not afraid, intimidated by any of you whatsoever, even the lot of you, right? But you, Leonard, always being the keen one and watching this a bit from the side, you can actually see there's a bit of a sympathy in her face when she looks at Bran. There's a bit of a No, sympathy is not the right word. A bit of a pity in her face when she looks at Bran. And she regards all of you. Does anybody say anything to her?
I wouldn't.
Does she seem nice?
I mean, she seems like a hard woman.
I guess she's like leading us to the jail.
She stopped and walked out of the cave. She's supposed to lead you to jail, but she at this point in time has just turned back to regard you guys. So there's an opportunity to speak first if you wanted to.
Another Witcher working for the Scoia'tael, huh?
She looks back at you, like meeting your gaze hard when you say that, and she says, when she says it, her accent strikes you as a bit as a bit like something that you're familiar with. The two of you can actually make me intelligence checks if you'd like, and or history checks if you, that's actually something you trained at. Her response to you is, "Our paths are in line."
Well, I hope you're on their side of things. It might even the battlefield a little bit. And I give her like a smirk.
When you hear her accent, it's very, very lost. It's very faint. You can almost barely hear the twang that's left there. Much like a deep Southerner that's lived in New England for too long, or a Bostonian that's lived down south for too long. It's like you can hear it occasionally, but it's
certain
so
words.
lost. Yeah, it's like just the way that she had let like one vowel sound fall. You're pretty sure that there was a very faint Scoia'tael accent. And once again, this is Leonard. Unfortunately, Bran has not really picked up much. It's Leonard that's crushing it left and right. So you're pretty sure that's a Scoia'tael.
It's the one thing I'm good at.
Twang to her. So my apologies. She said what our paths are aligned, and your response was what again?
I'm saying it's nice to see someone on the other side of it because it balances the sides, is essentially what I said.
Gotcha. She nods and looks you down one more time and says, "Cat. I've not really encountered cats before."
You know, surprisingly, it's been a while for myself as well.
Not so surprising these days.
Yeah. Bear. I don't think I've ever met a bear before.
Potentially the last. She says maybe the last.
What a nice lady.
It finally clicks in Bran's head, like, yeah. That's... okay.
Your step. It's quiet, but there's no sureness to it. You'd easily lose an ankle if I were to rush you right now. Those weapons you hold, you were trained in them, but I bet it's sloppy. And she looks over towards Bastion and she says, "And you think the fact that the weight of your weapon is going to carry the blow true, you need precision as well. Your arms, I can see the muscle does not work right. You've been lazy. Your training is poor." And she looks over at Bran and says, "And what if those fingers don't waggle? What if you've lost them? How are you going to fight? The three of you are sloppy. You're not going to last long if you turn on them witch hunters. You need practice. You'll meet me at dawn. Let's get the other one." And she turns and starts walking up the up around that same steep cliffside that I had said beforehand, described beforehand, and brings you over to where those lean-tos are, and where the center of it you have that wooden cell that's sitting there, and she goes up and like hangs back a little bit, but gives a nod to the dwarf, who looks at her, looks back at the one in the cell, and then just walks off. And you guys can easily go over and open the cell for him.
I mean, we could, but it's way more funny to just sit in there and like just stare at him for a while. Like,
yeah, we'll keep it close for a minute, and I'll like lean up on the bars and be like,
We'll tap the glass. Have him do a funny dance.
Shouldn't do the crime if you can't do the time.
You tore my kilt.
Oh, diddums.
You're the one who's gonna fix this. I've seen your magics.
Yes, let's do magic in a camp where they don't know if we're friend or foe yet.
Well, yeah.
Hey, Telebast, give me a quick little spin here.
And
Surely
Telebast
good.
is like sitting there with one leg up, like drawn in towards him, the other leg, and the one leg that is up is like the bare leg, and he's like, "No, I'm quite comfortable actually." It's,
Oh well,
not
if
so
you're
bad."
comfortable, then
Yeah, well, I mean, Bastion can come with us, and you can stay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Good luck with Bastion.
What do you mean?
Have you seen the amount of people around here?
Mm-hmm.
Bastion,
But they're all like half people.
Bastion doesn't do so well with people without being distracted.
Well, you seem to go on a striptease at the slightest occasion.
I mean, I was abused on my way into prison, and you think that's funny?
Yeah, I'll talk to the guard about it, and I'll open the door for him.
Thank you.
So we're kind of stuck here, Talonbast. At least momentarily. Gotta spend a night, sounds.
We're, staying.
Apparently. There's actually another Witcher here. She's gonna teach us how to fight some witch hunters.
Another Witcher.
Another witch. That's
3
fine.
fucking witches in one camp.
Yep.
Oh. By the eternal flame, we are screwed. 3 witches.
Come on, don't use that kind of language here, Talonbast. They don't like the eternal flame here.
Yeah,
Good.
they don't like
Me
humans
neither.
either. Well, I mean, actually, there's nothing wrong with the eternal flame itself, Bran. It's more of a religious, zealous attitude that brings about the whole witch hunting thing.
Religions are wonky.
Well, I don't suppose you can think of anything better. What do you do when a ghoul comes to your town? Barely any of these boys have outpoints at the Witcher. You can't fight it yourself. You pray.
Typically, they don't fare so well without one of us around.
Well, yeah. That's why you got to pray, mate.
Typically,
Oh,
you don't
yes.
do so well by exposing yourself in a prayer either. But
Well,
That's
people
just
tend
the,
to pray in their homes. Yeah, it's a funny thing.
yeah,
Don't go
funny
to the
thing about specters and ghosts is walls don't seem to contain them very well.
Oh.
Or
Why do we always have to talk about ghosts?
we were
Why
talking
is it
about
always
ghosts.
I was talking about ghouls.
Oh, you're talking about ghouls.
Mm-hmm.
It's my apologies.
He like grumpily stomps over to the table where he picks up his bits and starts putting the crossbow bolts back in the quiver one at a time. Ghosts, dwarves everywhere, like 3 witches.
You done? Yeah, you done now.
Well, what are we doing until this training?
Well, one of us will have to stay here in chains to keep up the appearance.
Right. Well, I'm fairly certain one of us has a lot more experience than the others in chains.
I think we only have to.
Oh, I'm sorry, your kilt looks awfully cold. Oh no, is that a gale? Oh man, oh.
Actually, I quite like the breeze, and he turns so that when a gust of wind
Yeah,
blows,
I'm
it,
sure
you
you
get a
do. It's the
full-on-
first
you
time
get-
in ages that's gotten any fresh air.
I would have gone with that's been blown. But
No. I'm not gonna help you.
he turns so that when there is a gust of fresh air, you get a full-on flash.
Lovely. Yeah, I think we're just. Do we, Daelric? Do we have to put Bastion in now, or only when we leave?
It's one of those things where you my apologies. You would probably assume that he needs to go in now because it's a matter of upholding the way that things seem right now.
All right. And is there a guard in the room?
You're in the open area. There are people's about. The guard that was just standing over Tal is still about, just not watching after you guys immediately. Went off to the side and is having a conversation with another dwarf in the area, and you can see that the bear, who has not said their name yet, is watching as well.
We send Bastion in. Can we? Does he need to give up all of his equipment and stuff?
He is going to have to do so. He can also put it on the table nearby, but you imagine the dwarves aren't going to steal it.
All right. Can we give him a holdout?
A holdout, my apologies, like a dagger or something like that to pinch between his cheeks.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants to try to pinch it between his cheeks while everybody's watching, he's welcome to do so. You guys have access to his character sheet, do you not?
We do.
Do you want to grab that and see if he can sleight of hand a dagger between his cheeks?
I'll take a quick peek at what he's got.
Is that actually what you want to give him, or do you want to give him something other than a dagger?
I was thinking about like his shield behind his back or something he could maybe like hide the shield in the cell somewhere, but the shield might be too big, so I'll give him a dagger.
Hide a shield. That doesn't work.
I mean, it's a
very well.
small
I
shield.
mean, you could be like, he needs
Like
a
a
shield
frisbee.
in case it rains, right? It's not a weapon.
It's a cave, dude.
I mean, no,
It's not
this was the wood posts tied together, and then like the thing's held shut by something being like hammered in place by a latch hammered in place. This is very very simple thing that's holding him. So he could be seen 360. You know what I mean? By anybody that's up in this lean-to area because he's in the center.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Bastian would love it. He's just gonna be in there flexing, posing.
You know what? Yeah, he'll be all right. I'll leave him without anything.
Yeah.
He'll be fine. Because I assume if the thing's made out of twigs and branches or whatever, Bastion's got some meaty strength. He might be able to, get his way out.
Oh, absolutely. So you
Or
give him
in.
that. You roll his sleight of hand for me, please, Messi.
Well, for
To hide the dagger.
We
No,
aborted
he's-
that plan.
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay, my apologies.
I'm glad you listened.
No,
to him.
I just didn't hear
That.
you say you scratched that. I knew you scratched everything else. So, all right. So, yep, you throw him inside there, and Bastion's kind of like he's excited for it, and then like literally as you like throw the latch over and hammer it in place, so it's like locked there. Then it kind of clicks for him, like, oh wait, and he seems dissatisfied.
Don't worry, buddy. We'll come get you eventually.
The bear had watched after you guys was watching as you guys had gathered your other friend, and she looks Tal over. She hadn't seen him before, but she regards him, but not with too closely, not with a complete lack of interest. She just like regards him, like sizes him up for a moment, but doesn't really say anything. And after you guys are like completely done with Bastion and turning to done kind of catching up with one another, she'll actually make her way in, and she says. Dawn points out. Sorry, no, that's the guy's voice. She's like Dawn points off to off to one of the sides. You can see there's a bit of a field over there. She's like, that field. Do not be late. And then she will she'll turn and walk to give you guys a bit of a distance, at least for now. She's leaving you to your own devices. This does leave you guys open in the camp. You obviously at this particular moment have no direction of what to do. You just know that you're going to be stuck here at least for the night and through till tomorrow morning. So being in the camp, is there anybody that you care to try to speak to, information you try to gather, or do you just kind of keep to yourselves?
Well, as she's walking off, I'm actually going to turn to Bran. And we'll be like, Bran, did you see the way she looks at you? You see the way she regards you?
Great interest.
The way every woman looks at Bran, right?
Bran, she feels sorry for you because you're not physically gifted like her or your companions, gesturing to Talabast and the man in the cage. I just want you to, I just don't want to think, I just want you to know what league you're in. That's all. Like, I'm looking out for you. I don't want you to say anything that might.
Well, apparently every other fucking person here is a witcher, so...
Right, so you're outgunned. And, I just wouldn't... Not saying that you were, but, I wouldn't, try to pursue any kind of special interests.
I mean, like, I know Bran's not a looker, but he can definitely do better than that.
Bastion's
very
like,
true.
Bastion's like, oh, clear the field for me. Thanks, Leonard. You're always
All right.
looking out for your friends. I appreciate that.
Bastian probably wouldn't mind being in chains.
Or putting others in chains. He's a boy. Well, he's up for a good time. So,
Yeah.
After you guys have this little teasing moment with Bran, and Bran shakes his head, is there anybody else that you care to, or is it kind of like flash forward till tomorrow? Unless you're looking to actually get a lay of the lands, because they're not following you, and you'll notice that pretty quickly. They're not watching after you. Others would be curious about you, and certainly like a few of the dwarves might even come up to you and speak to you. But and by the way, it is completely with the exception of that bear and now you guys. It is completely dwarves here. Not a single elf amongst them or anything else, right? None of the other non-humans are here. So do you guys have any more conversation with them? Sorry, the others that come up to you and just have very light conversation, like, oh, what's your name? And whatnot. Do you really press convo, or you just, like, allow time to pass?
I would probably spend some time with, like, people that come up and stuff, trying to, like, get a better understanding of the dwarven dialect of Elder Speech.
So you, they regard you as human until you can, until either one of them say, or you give some sort of proof that you're not human, that you're actually, like, a mage. And so it's literally because they regard you as human, people actually don't really approach you or don't say anything. They'll talk to those around you and maybe give you like looks from time to time. Some of them like really harsh looks, some of them just like cautious looks, you know what I mean? But after again it becomes very like it becomes very obvious that you are a caster, you're a mage, they soften almost immediately. They're a bit guarded because unfortunately everybody's scared of those that aren't practiced, and you don't come off as like a practiced, wizarding type, someone that's had eons of schooling. So they're a bit guarded because of that. But overall, they very much open up to you, and so you're welcome to actually have conversation with them. So my apologies, if you could re-ask that question. Getting to know the dwarven culture, maybe the language a bit.
Yeah, basically, like, you told me earlier that, like, Dwarven is, like, a dialect of Elder Speech. I would like to familiarize myself a bit more with it, like,
Sure.
through lighthearted conversation with them.
Sure, I would actually allow you to do that without, like, it's literally just a matter of, like, having conversation, spending a little bit of coin on, like, oh, hey, here's some drinks, or something like that. If you were to like, spend enough time here to do that, or time throughout the campaign, if you don't have enough time specifically here to do that, definitely would allow you to brush up this language, and it wouldn't take terribly long either. But at least to start setting a foundation of making friends here, because they are a bit guarded, you can make a persuasion check with disadvantage.
Oh boy. Yep.
I mean, so it's one of those things where you don't make any friendships. People are not rude to you, but they're just that bit guarded that I was described. You don't make any friendships. But then again, neither do the Witchers. The Witcher and Tal. You, sir, some of them just straight out don't talk to you. Some of them straight out will, like, if in a conversation, will turn their back slightly to you, to not converse with you. And others will, treat you just like a normal person. They fully realize that you're obviously not one of the other humans, and they're just kind of like, you're caught just because of your race in the middle of what they're caught in because of their race. And so it's this very varying degree. Because there's only about 36 people that live here, it's about 36 that live here, unfortunately the sample is more not in your favor than in it, but there are some here that leaves you this like taste of hope, that it's not like it needs to be this raging blood war for forever, right? Anyways, let's flash forward to the next day. You guys, it's not like you're given a gorgeous camp or anything like that to sleep in. It's not like you're given your own cave. It's literally, you take care of yourselves. And so your bedrolls and whatever you have, you take care of it yourselves.
So they don't take like 2 dwarf-sized bedrolls and lay them out longwise?
Bastion wasn't going to be given his bedroll or anything like that, but at one point in time, actually, this is for Bastion's knowledge, you guys wouldn't have witnessed it. The bear would have walked by, and because his belongings were taken from him, his bedroll would have been passed through the bars for him to take and hold on to, and because likely his medallion was taken from him as well, that also would have been passed through the bars to him. And definitely, like, the food quality that Tao probably would have received versus what Bastion receives is much higher. She makes sure that he gets all of that stuff too. She doesn't really say anything to him. She just goes over and gives him the stuff to make sure he's taken care of. This is a matter of propriety from the leader, and not a matter of torment for poor Bastion. So she makes sure that he's comfortable well enough. Flashing forward to the next morning, you guys do get up, and some of you up well before dawn, some of you are in time to get ready, and you make your way over to where it was that she had described, making your way over to the field, and you can see that she is on the field itself. She has her sword at the ready, and she's actually standing there. There are 7 dwarves in front of her. Each of them have their weapons out at the ready, and she's kind of like commanding to them to get into their various positions. It's not that they beat you here because they're fast, because again, you guys filter in your own times. It's not that they beat you here because like you're late or anything like that. It's just that they are so insanely punctual that they got there well beforehand, and so she was taking advantage of that time to give them more lessons immediately. The weapon that she holds in her hand is a Zeinhinder, so it's this like large, somewhat curved blade that she's holding. It's absolutely massive. For those of you that are familiar with the different regions, it's clearly a Nilfgaardian weapon that she has, and judging by the craft of it, it doesn't look like it was one that was carved recently. It looks like it would have been a Nilfgaardian weapon that would have been carved sometime in the recent past, based off like the design of it, right? And the weapon that she has at her side while she's over there, she actually has a silvered battle axe that's at her side. She, like I said, has the Zeinhander in her hand at the moment, and she's starting to like bark out orders for them to get into formations. As you guys filter over, she looks at each of you and points out a spot for each of you to get into. Because the three of you arriving does round the number to 10, the three of you and the 7 dwarves does round the number to 10. She ends up breaking you guys off into groups of 2. At first, she has each of you squared off with a dwarf. And how this all plays out, we can actually handle that when we come back from our first break. So we'll take that break so Neil can pee. And
no, it might be a little bit longer because I'm gonna restart everything.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'll actually do like a 7-8 minute break. So thanks for the heads up about that, Neil. So everybody, like, go grab food, coffees, whatever you gotta do. We'll be back in just a few minutes and see how this plays out. All right, thanks.
Because it's infuriating me.